Welcome to the Smart Keys podcast. I want you to imagine waking up on a Monday, you grab your coffee, open your laptop, and you suddenly realize the single tool that drives like 80% of your company's sales pipeline has just completely vanished overnight.
Just poof, gone.
Literally gone. No warning, no graceful wind down period, just an error screen. So for you as a listener tuning into this deep dive, you are stepping into a highly specialized exploration of the future of work and really business efficiency as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are unpacking this incredibly detailed 2026 software review from smartkeys.org. It's titled FullEnrich Review 2026. Is it the ultimate B2B data finder? And it's by Felix Rummer.
And, our mission for this deep dive is to extract the real strategic insights from Felix's review. Because it's not just about features, right? We're evaluating how modern professionals can utilize B2B data orchestration to stay ahead of the curve.
Right.
You really have to view this source material as a comprehensive playbook for RevOps and sales efficiency. I mean, it's a masterclass in understanding why some data architectures survive this rapidly changing digital landscape, while others just completely crumble under the pressure.
They just fall apart. And to really understand where FullEnrich stands in 2026, we first have to understand what it lost. Because there was this massive shift that basically shook the whole SaaS world, especially for anybody doing outbound sales.
Oh, yeah. The shutdown.
The shutdown.
Yeah.
On June 16th, 2025, FullEnrich just completely killed its LinkedIn Chrome extension. And if you remember using this tool, that extension was its absolute claim to fame.
It was the whole reason people bought it in the first place.
Exactly. You could navigate to a prospect's LinkedIn profile, click a single button on your browser, and boom, you immediately have their verified email and mobile number. And then over a single weekend, that entire capability was terminated.
It's crazy when you look at the timeline outlined in the review. So on a Friday, the CEO sends out this mass email to all the users. And by Monday morning, the functionality is just gone.
Wow.
Yeah. You could no longer enrich contacts directly from a browser overlay. Exporting from Sales Navigator was disabled, all of it. So for solo sellers and startup teams who had built their entire daily routine around that one-click convenience, I mean, it literally felt like their primary revenue engine had been seized.
It makes me think of an analogy, actually. Building a business process that relies entirely on a browser extension is it's basically like building a mansion on a rented foundation.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Right, because it looks great and it's super convenient right up until the landlord decides to turn on the sprinklers and just washes you out completely.
Yep.
But I do want to push back on the mechanics of this for a second.
Yep.
Because was this a technical failure on FullEnrich's part? Like, did their scraping algorithm just finally break?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the shutdown was regulatory, not technical. It wasn't a software bug at all. LinkedIn had just massively tightened its rules around extensions that overlay data or scrape profiles.
So they were basically forced out.
Exactly. FullEnrich had to make a really tough call. They could try to play this endless game of cat and mouse with LinkedIn's security engineers, which, by the way, is historically a losing battle, or they could protect their core platform. They chose to play it safe, protect their relationship with the broader ecosystem, rather than risk having everything blacklisted.
And they did offer prorated refunds for remaining credits, right, for the people who got disrupted.
They did, yeah. Which is honorable, but it still leaves the user completely stranded without a workflow.
Totally stranded.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the broader lesson for you, the listener, really comes into focus.
Yeah.
Depending on third-party browser policies is just a massive structural risk for your tech stack.
Oh, 100%. Because Google has also aggressively tightened what Chrome extensions are allowed to do in the background. FullEnrich wasn't the only one. Several other vendors had to make the exact same retreat.
So what's the alternative then?
Well, it forces this massive transition away from these fragile browser-based hacks toward a much more durable strategy, which is list-based, API-driven workflows.
Okay, so pushing data systematically instead of clicking a button.
Right. If you're uploading a CSV file of 100,000 contacts, or you're pushing data automatically from your own CRM through an API, you are entirely insulated from some random UI update on a social network. You own the workflow.
Okay, so FullEnrich loses their shiny one-click trick.
Yeah.
They can't just be the easiest tool in the room anymore, which means they had to pivot and double down on what's actually happening under the hood, right?
Yes. They leaned heavily into their core architectural bet, which they call the waterfall engine.
The waterfall engine.
Yeah.
Because they don't operate like legacy providers like ZoomInfo or Apollo. They own these massive static databases. But FullEnrich doesn't, right? They act as an orchestration layer.
Exactly. They don't just sit on one giant list. When you give the platform a lead's name and their company, it basically chains multiple external data providers together in a sequence. So if the first provider comes up empty, it instantly pings a second and then a third until it finds a verified match.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it's less like a single search and more like an algorithmic triage system.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Like a patient comes into a hospital, which is our sales lead in this case, and they are passed to very specific specialists in a defined order based on their industry or region, just optimizing for speed.
And that structure gives them a huge advantage because no single static database is perfect everywhere. A provider that has amazing data for, say, tech startups in San Francisco might have terrible, completely outdated information for manufacturing execs in Germany.
Right, the coverage is always patchy.
Exactly. So by chaining more than 25 independent data providers together and dynamically weighting the sequence based on the prospect's industry and seniority, the engine just gets a way higher yield.
And the stats in the review back that up in a big way. Independent benchmarks show waterfall approaches hit 80 to 98% email find rates.
Which is massive.
Right, compared to just 55 to 62% for single-source tools. I mean, that difference is literally hitting your pipeline targets for the quarter versus completely missing them.
It's the difference between scaling and stagnating, really.
Wait, I have a question about this. If you are scraping 25 sources at once, how do you avoid just a tidal wave of garbage data? Like, doesn't compounding 25 sources just mean 25 times the bad data?
That is the big risk with data orchestration, for sure. And that brings us to their quality control, which they call triple email verification. They actually filter the raw data aggressively. Before it even hits your dashboard, they discard about 30% of the raw data they find.
Wait, 30%? That's a huge amount of data to just throw away.
It is, but they refuse to pass it on if it doesn't meet the standard.
So what are these 3 layers of verification? How does it actually work?
So the first layer is pretty standard, just a syntax check, making sure it looks like a real email format. But the second layer is an SMTP probe.
Okay, an SMTP probe, what is that mechanically?
Mechanically, their servers basically send a ping, like a digital knock on the recipient's email server door asking, hey, does this inbox actually exist? And they get a response without actually sending a real email.
Okay, I follow that. And then there's the catch-all issue, right? Because I hear catch-all domain all the time in sales ops. What makes a catch-all so hard to deal with?
Oh, catch-alls are a nightmare. So a catch-all domain is configured by an IT department so they don't miss any inbound emails. If you misspell an address like jhn.do instead of john.do, the server is set up to just say, yes, that's valid, and route it to a general inbox.
So they never bounce back.
Right. So when that SMTP probe knocks on the door, a catch-all server always gives a false positive. It says every single guess is valid.
Which breaks normal verification tools, because you send the email, it eventually bounces or gets trapped in spam, and your sender reputation just gets tanked.
Exactly. But FullEnrich has this proprietary third layer of verification. They use historical bounce data and these advanced heuristics to resolve about 80% of those notorious catch-all domains. And every result comes with a confidence score.
So you know exactly how risky the email is before you send it.
Precisely.
And what about phone numbers? Because a bad phone number is arguably worse. It just wastes the sales rep's time completely.
Oh, phone numbers are a totally different beast. FullEnrich works with telecom partners to do carrier lookups. That identifies the line type so you aren't trying to text a landline sitting on someone's corporate desk.
Yeah, nothing worse than sending an SMS sequence to a Cisco desk phone.
Right. Plus, they have this AI layer specifically for the US and Canada. The AI checks telecom databases to match the registered owner of the line to your specific prospect's name. If it's a landline or out of service, the AI flags it.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because finding the data is great, but as business insiders know, it all comes down to the unit economics. How does this actually affect the budget?
This is their secret weapon, honestly. It's a pay-only-on-success model. You only consume a credit if the contact is found and passes all that rigorous verification.
Wait, really? So if the AI flags a number as a landline, or they just can't find the email?
It costs you absolutely nothing. Failed lookups drain 0 credits.
Wow. That completely separates them from the legacy tools that charge you just to click search?
Right.
Let's actually unpack the pricing for a second. So for 2026, they have a free trial with 50 credits. Then Pro starts at $55 a month for 1,000 credits, and it scales up. Plus an enterprise tier?
Yep.
But the thing that stood out to me, and this is huge for agencies and larger teams, every plan includes unlimited seats.
which is incredibly rare. Usually, scaling companies get hammered by what we call the seat tax. You hire a new SDR, and suddenly you're paying another $100 a month just for their login. By removing seat licenses, your whole RevOps department can just share one big credit pool. It turns the software into a utility cost, like paying for AWS or electricity.
But, and this is a big but, for the listener, we have to talk about the budget trap mentioned in the review. Because $55 a month sounds cheap, but the credit weights are wild.
Oh yeah, you have to read the fine print.
A verified work email is 1 credit. A reverse email lookup is 1 credit. But a mobile phone number, that is a whopping 10 credits.
Yeah, the carrier lookups and AI verification for mobile are expensive to run, so they pass that cost straight to the user. And if you aren't paying attention, those unit economics will bite you.
Let's run through that specific example from the text.
Yeah, let's say you have a team of 10 reps. Pretty standard. Each rep needs to find just 20 mobile numbers and 100 work emails a week.
Not a crazy high volume at all.
Not at all. But because a mobile number is 10 credits, that small team burns through about 12,000 credits a month. And on the Pro slider, 12,000 credits is roughly $720 a month.
Okay, $720 a month is a totally different conversation than starts at $55. So the takeaway for you listening is clear. Run the math before committing. If your outreach strategy is super phone heavy, you will burn through that budget fast.
Exactly. For email-heavy campaigns, maybe paying 10 cents an email, it's highly competitive. But for cold calling, you have to watch it closely.
So we've covered the platform pivot, the waterfall engine, the economics, but none of this matters if the data just sits in a vacuum. How does FullEnrich plug into an automated 2026 tech stack?
They've rolled out some big updates, native CRM integrations for HubSpot and Salesforce, obviously, a massive people and company search, 800 million people, 50 million companies, so you can build lists right in the tool.
And the SOC2 Type 2 certification, which is basically the golden ticket to get past enterprise procurement.
Oh, absolutely.
Plus the reverse email lookup, which I love. You take a generic inbound email from a form, and for 1 credit, you get their whole enriched profile. But the review highlighted one critical update that most people might skip over.
Yeah, the MCP server. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the most significant thing they've done. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. By exposing an MCP server, they are allowing AI assistants and agents to trigger enrichment directly as part of a workflow.
Wait, pause. For people used to, like Zapier, what is an MCP server mechanically? Why does an AI agent even need it?
So with Zapier, a human has to build rigid rules. If this happens, do that. It's manual glue code. But an MCP server acts like an open, structured menu. An AI agent can just read the menu and understand what the tool does.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the AI can dynamically decide, I don't have enough context to write this email. Let me independently call the FullEnrich server, grab the data, and then write the draft. It completely removes the developer from the equation.
That's insane. So instead of an SDR manually mapping fields, the AI just orders what it needs off the menu. But to keep it balanced,
Right.
we have to talk about the caveats. Because this isn't perfect.
Far from it. The biggest limitation is regional coverage. Those amazing 80 to 98% hit rates, that's US and Canada. The review notes that in APAC or LATAM, it drops to 50 or 60%.
Which is a huge drop if you have a global territory.
Yeah.
And also, unlike Apollo, there's no built-in sequencing or intent data. You can't actually send the emails from FullEnrich.
Right. FullEnrich tells you how to reach someone, not when. It's extreme depth over breadth. You're choosing a specialized component over an all-in-one tool.
Which makes sense. So to summarize all of this, FullEnrich survived the loss of their browser extension by doubling down on a durable, enterprise-grade architecture. They do one thing contact enrichment incredibly well by chaining 25 providers together using rigorous verification and charging only for success.
And it proves that the best SaaS tools aren't built on rented foundations. They're built on strong APIs, audited security, and economics that actually align with the user's success.
Thank you for tuning in to the Smart Keys podcast. We highly encourage you to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And make sure to read the full article by Felix Romer. You can find the link right in our show notes.
And just to leave you with a final thought to mull over. As data orchestration tools like FullEnrich get seamlessly linked up to AI agents via these open MCP servers, are we approaching a future where the traditional manual role of a sales development representative is just entirely outsourced to autonomous software?
It's a fascinating thought. If the AI can find the lead, pull the data from the server, and write the email without any human bottleneck, maybe we really are looking at the end of the rented foundation and the beginning of the fully automated skyscraper. Something to think about. Until next time.